What's going on, everybody? Welcome to kind of the final wrap up of my 40-hour 7-day language challenge. I got my notes right here. If you're new here, I am doing the 40-hour 7-day language challenge. The general core of it is to try and study 40 hours within a week. The challenge to me has always been more so about studying or immersing in the language more than you usually do. If you do it for an hour a day, try to do it an hour and a half or 2 hours, and you're maximizing your time. This week, I did 30 hours and 8 minutes. So no, I did not do 40. I had a plan of doing 40 and I was on pace of doing 40, but then I had some things come up. I took my son to a Christmas parade over the weekend. I went to one of my best friend's house, Stevie. We were watching some wrestling, and he's also a YouTuber. He has a wrestling channel and a true crime channel. If you're into that, you can check those out. I'll leave those linked in the description, or you can search for the names that I showed on the screen here. We'll, of course, from where he does YouTube as well, we'll talk YouTube strategies and things like that. I had some stuff to do around the house, but with 30 hours and 8 minutes, that's still the most that I've studied language in a long time. As you'll know, I've not uploaded a language video on this channel for 2 months, so I've just not been studying a whole lot. I've studied, just not a ton. To break the 30 hours down a little bit more, study time was 7 hours and 32 minutes, and that felt really good. I think I could do more and probably benefit a little bit more from study, but it worked really well. And it's honestly hard to say that I could benefit more because I had a great week, especially when it comes to when I get to immersing and reading and making my sentence cards. I had an incredible week. Study to me was kind of that core of getting the word introduced to me, having it in several different contexts. And then when I saw it in immersion, it just stuck. It's kind of that fine line of studying and then immersing and making them work together. The core of what I used to study was Duolingo, Norwegian Pod 101. I would watch videos on YouTube of maybe some grammar breakdowns or something like that, but that's pretty much it. I didn't do Duolingo during the day. It was pretty much a nighttime thing. When I was trying to go to sleep, I would lay there and I would do some lessons of Duolingo, and it was pretty solid. I may wake up in the morning and before I get started on my day, I may do a lesson or two there, but it was never a during the day kind of thing. Norwegian Pod 101, I think I did 6 lessons of it. I like it and I learned from it, but I find the podcast itself can be insufferable at times. And I just mean that they pack so much extra filler in there of conversation that's not necessary. That lesson don't need to be 15 minutes. It can be 7. I know that they have a script where you can read the PDF and follow along with everything that they're saying in English and whatnot, but I feel like that's probably written before they film the episodes because it sounds so robotic. So I don't know how much longer I will carry on with Norwegian Pod 101. Like, I'm not going to say it's bad. I think it's a great resource. It's just if you can get past the robot-y voice. One major take back from my study is how much more time I would have got if I would have utilized Duolingo correctly. If I'm sitting down, the reason I didn't use it during the day is because if I'm sitting down and I'm doing something, I'm going to be immersing, I'm going to be making sentence cards, I'm going to be reading, anything like that. The core of language acquisition, right? I think I could have utilized and probably got an extra, I don't even know how much time. I mean, maybe an extra couple of hours if I would have utilized Duolingo to where if I'm in the drive-thru with my wife and she's going through the drive-thru, pull out my phone, do a 5 or 10 minute lesson. That's extra time. Sitting on the couch at night, me and her watching TV, pull out the phone during a commercial, do a lesson of Duolingo, get a little extra time. I think I could have gotten a lot more time. And honestly, it's not even bad time, right? That's how you use Duolingo. Duolingo is a secondary resource that kind of can build on the language that you're learning. Plus, the Norwegian course is basically widespread known as the best course on Duolingo, but that's because the moderators care about it. Getting into immersion, I immersed 22 hours and 35 minutes. The app that I use to track is a time logger, but you're probably noticing that I said I studied for 30 hours and 8 minutes. The last 2 digits are 2 and 5, which is 7 and not 8. A time logger calculates seconds, but it doesn't show you what it's calculated. So for example, that's probably actually 22 hours, 35 minutes and 35 seconds. And then the study time is probably 7 hours, 32 minutes and 28 seconds. So it pushes it over that to be that next minute. So that can look a little bit weird sometimes. That's the only thing I don't really like about the app. We're going to start with Anki because that's the thing that everybody loves. I think Anki's fine. It's working for what it is. I don't like to spend a lot of time in it. I made 75 sentence cards where I knew every word in the sentence except for one word, and I learned words via context. That is going really well. There's a couple of words that I struggle with, but I mean, that's in everything. Like some words just stick instantly and then some don't, but I guess that's the process of language learning and finding out what our brains are doing. The 75 cards are going good. On the day that they come up for review, I'm answering the learning cards, because I don't have any mature cards yet, at an 87.43% correct ratio. That's it on Anki. I don't have anything else. Is what it is. It's a flashcard system. There's not much to talk about. Going on to reading, I'm really happy with my reading this week. If you watch this channel, you know that I struggle with reading. I talk about reading all the time, and yet I don't do it. I always talk about how important it is and how every time I read, I get something out of it. I'll learn words or whatever, but it's really hard for me to do. I get really fatigued when I'm learning in a foreign language. I guess just sometimes I just don't do it because of knowing what it's going to feel like. But this week I pushed myself, and this probably isn't a lot to other people. I read 10,899 words this week. I was almost at 11,000. If I'd have realized I was that close, I probably would have pushed myself a little bit more. So 10,899 words read. That's probably the most I've read in a week, not counting Spanish, in a long time. 10,899 words, I'm really, really happy with. Another couple statistics just to mention in the reading is I learned 113 words, which is really great. There's probably it's honestly that's probably an approximation. There's also words in there that I know that I haven't marked as known yet in Link, just because they're still a little weird to me. Like, I can recognize them, but like they're also really similar to other words or something like that, so I won't mark them. But I think the approximation of 113 is probably pretty accurate. I did learn a lot this week, and so I feel pretty comfortable with that. And that brings my total known words in Link, of course, to 721, which I'm pretty happy about. So in closing, this week was a major win for me. I think this is one of the best weeks that I've had in study in a long time, probably since studying Japanese, and honestly probably more efficient than when I studied Japanese. I think this is one of the best weeks that I've had. I did not hit 40 hours, but I don't look at that as a failure, because I got so much more in and so much more quality time in than I have in the past few months, to be completely honest. I feel great about it. I think that this is something I could build on. I mean, 30 hours a week isn't anything to scoff at, right? That's 120 hours a month, and that is really good, in my opinion, for anybody studying languages. Especially, you know, I have a job. I work for 2 people, and I have a wife, and I have a kid. As I mentioned earlier, you know, something comes up, you know, I'm going to take my kid to a Christmas parade, things like that. I think that this week was a great example of getting time in when I could, and then still living my life. I got into such a bad place when I was trying to do Japanese, where I stopped doing everything. Actually, I can make a whole video on this, actually, and I probably will. But I got into a place where I was so mentally exhausted, but I felt like I was struggling in Japanese, so I would sacrifice doing stuff, and then I got really bad anxiety. I got to a point where I was afraid to leave my house. Not afraid to leave my house, I wouldn't leave my house. I was so shut in. That's a whole different video, but this right here showed me I can study, I can immerse, I can make progress, I can still have a life, I can still be a husband, I can still be a father, I can still be a friend, I can still learn a language. That's all for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in the next video.